Good evening. Good evening and welcome to this Mayoral Candidate Forum on Housing and Homelessness in Detroit. I'm Reverend Paul Perez. My pronouns are he, him, and I serve as lead minister here at Central United Methodist Church. On behalf of Central's members, the nonprofits and community groups that call Central home, welcome to this historic place of worship. Welcome to Central United Methodist Church. Housing and homelessness is close to Central's heart and at the heart of Central's mission here in the heart of downtown Detroit. For over 20 years, we have been home to Noah at Central, who has built compassionate community and engaged in relationship-based care with people who are unhoused. And looking forward, we at Central and Noah at Central have a big-hearted vision for a downtown for all. A bold vision of redeveloping and repurposing our over centuries old campus to provide permanent housing and affordable housing right here in downtown Detroit. That's why we're glad to open our doors and host this important conversation in partnership with NOAD Central and the other organizations who are part of the planning team. Alternatives for Girls, Cass Community Social Services, Corporation for Supportive Housing, Michigan office, Detroit Phoenix Center, and the Ruth Ellis Center. And a thank you to all of our candidates who have said yes to our invitation. Please give them a warm welcome. A couple of housekeeping pieces. First, to the candidates. To respond to your questions, you will be passing the cordless mics amongst each other. So you'll have to kind of share that mic. I'll put it right here on the stand when we're ready to go. And then there's another mic at the far end. In terms of the space, there's a men's bathroom right outside of the sanctuary and a women's bathroom on the second floor. As I mentioned, our building is been around for a while and it's starting to feel all of its 158 years, hence the redevelopment. One of the symptoms right now is our elevator is experiencing some difficulties. So please use the stairs to access the second floor bathroom. If you need a closer women's bathroom, please see Angie at our front door and she'll guide you to the appropriate spot. It's also a warm evening, if you haven't noticed. And our sanctuary is very warm. If you need some water, please feel free to step out and get some in our lobby. Now I'd like to introduce our moderators. First, Zara Northover. Zara is an Olympian, entrepreneur, public speaker, world traveler, and passionate advocate for justice, equity, and youth empowerment. A proud Detroit resident, she serves on the board of the Detroit Phoenix Center and has long supported nonprofits across the city. Currently, she serves as business development consultant in Hamilton Anderson Associates and is the founder of Moving in Faith, a global empowerment brand. Her depth, energy, and commitment to equity will bring dynamic leadership and meaningful dialogue to this important forum as a moderator. And Andrew Stein. Andrew serves as president and CAO of the Children's Foundation. Andrew was drawn to this role because of the unique platform the foundation offers to address the health and wellness of children in his home community of Southeast Michigan. Andrew is an alumnus of Detroit Country Day School, Michigan State University, and Georgetown Law School. He lives in Detroit with his wife and 3 children. He is active in the community, serving as treasurer of New Detroit, a board member of the Sherwood Forest Association, and numerous other coalitions and committees focused on children, education, and workforce development. Andrew brings a lifelong commitment to the health and well-being of kids in the city of Detroit, and he'll bring that commitment to his role of moderator tonight. As I turn it over to Zara and Andrew, please welcome them with a round of warm applause.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you so much, Reverend Perez, and thank you to Central United Methodist Church, our host this evening. We could give them one more round of applause for hosting this forum tonight. Zara and I are here at the invitation of a coalition of 14 agencies in this community that serve individuals and families that are facing homelessness. Reverend Perez named a few of them. I want to run through all the agencies that have been a part of convening this forum tonight. It's Alternatives for Girls, Cass Community Social Services, Central United Methodist Church, Community and Home Supports, the Corporation for Supportive Housing, their Michigan office, Detroit Phoenix Center, which Zara is a board member, Freedom House, Full Circle Communities, Homeless Action Network of Detroit, Neighborhood Legal Services Michigan, NOAA at Central, Ruth Ellis Center, the McGregor Fund, and Wayne Metro Community Action Agency. Phenomenal agencies that do absolutely critical work for individuals and families in our community. And they organized this forum because they wanted to make sure that the communities and individuals they served were represented in this election season, and wanted an opportunity to hear from our city's candidates for mayor about their plans to support and address the homeless population here in our city. So with that, I'm going to turn over to Zara.
All right, how you guys feeling? Or should I say, what up, though? So I want to lay out some ground rules and good energy, because that's what we're bringing today. Homelessness and affordable housing is already a deep enough topic. So definitely want to bring light and energy into the room today. I want to thank the candidates for coming out to talk about this topic, because it is what we need to hear and desire to hear. So as a result, we did invite all the candidates, and we've asked them these questions leading up to it ahead of time. There's a theme, and I want to make sure everybody in the audience knows what that theme is also. So that's transforming the homelessness service system by implementing person-centered, housing-first best practices and fostering collaboration across service systems. They'll also be talking today about increasing permanent supportive housing, a deeply affordable housing in Detroit. So what that looks like. They'll also be touching base on investing in and sustainable funding for the homelessness service system. So these are things and topics that we know that are important to not only the nonprofits, but the residents and the citizens of Detroit. So while increasing affordable housing is a shared and urgent goal, this forum is not solely about increasing the supply of affordable housing. It's also about strengthening the entire homeless response system. That includes improving system efficiency, also allocating funding to support service providers, food, clothing, and other basic needs. We'll also be talking about prioritizing the development of permanent supportive and deeply affordable housing for individuals earning 30% to 50% of the area median income. So what that means in numbers is anyone that's making anywhere from about $16,500 to about $27,500 for an individual in Detroit. And that is a real number that many individuals in the city are making, while also talking about ensuring that homelessness response strategies address the needs of all populations, single adults, youth, families, LGBTQIA+ individuals, veterans, and others. So we're gonna get right into talking about our candidates.
Thank you. We had a great turnout. Grateful for the 6 candidates on stage. We are going to run through bios, and then we're going to lay out some rules, and then we're going to get right to the questions. So our first candidate is Rogelio Landon. Rogelio is a writing candidate for mayor. He has over 50 years of professional private sector and concurrent voluntary nonprofit human service leadership. Amassed a great deal of experience in every aspect of governance and policy attributable to the office of mayor for the city of Detroit. Rogelio says he's prepared to engage in each of our issues with quantifiable, qualifiable, and verifiable proven solutions with a people-centered approach leading to self-sufficiency and community self-determination.
All right, and then next up we have Council President Mary Sheffield. In November of 2013, Mary made history, becoming the youngest person ever elected to Detroit City Council. At the age of 26, she was elected to serve District 5. Mary was appointed as chair of the Neighborhood and Community Services Standing Committee and has served as a member of the Planning and Economic Development, along with Budget, Finance, and Audit Standing Committees. She's also been appointed to serve as board member for the Detroit Riverfront Conservancy and the General Retirement System Pension Board. In January of 2022, Mary has also made history again, becoming the youngest person ever to be elected as council president. During her tenure, she sponsored and passed legislations and programs that are inclusionary housing programs, property tax reform, community input over government surveillance, home repair grant funding, industry standards boards, right to counsel, and the list continues to go on.
Next is Santil Jenkins. Santil is a lifelong Detroiter, former city council president, breast cancer survivor, and former CEO of the Heat and Warmth Fund, or THAW. Santil worked as a social worker, director of the Residential Treatment Center at the Mariners Inn Homeless Shelter for Men here in Detroit, National Business Development Director for a private education company, Platform Learning, that provides services to low-income children in at-risk school districts, and at one time ran her own dessert catering company, Petite Sweets. She served on Detroit City Council from 2010 to 2014 before leaving to become CEO of THAW. Santil is a proud graduate of Cass Technical High School and Wayne State University, where she earned both her bachelor's and her master's degree in social work.
And then we have Fred Durhall, a proud Detroiter. Fred was elected in 2021 to represent District 7, born and raised in Detroit as the son of former state representative Fred Durhall Jr. and Martha Durhall. He was raised as a lifelong public servant. As a city council member, Fred spearheaded numerous programs, including the pilot fast track program that accelerated construction of more than 1,400 affordable housing units. In 2014, Fred was elected to be the Michigan House of Representatives and appointed Assistant House Democratic Leader, where he served as the Appropriations Committee as Minority Vice Chair. He also went on to be reelected in the State House in 2016 and appointed as Minority Vice Chair and House Appropriations Committee again. This is where he was able to oversee Michigan's budget of about $54 billion and securing $1 billion to Detroit that went on to secure funds for local programmings, grants for Detroit communities. After leaving the Michigan House in 2019, Fred served as the community liaison for the Michigan State Housing Authority, where he provided affordable housing solutions and resources to communities across Michigan. He also served for AmeriCorps in Northwest Detroit, Motor City, Blightbusters, Habitat for Humanities to rebuild homes in Detroit. Fred has also been a member of the UAW Local 6000 and Teamsters Local 337. In 2024, he was recognized as a 2024 Michigan Chronicle Man of Excellence, and he lives in District 7, where he also represents with his wife, attorney Brianna Durhall, and their 2 children. All right, while Joel Hashim is not with us today, he had to cancel at the last minute, so we hope he's okay. We have Danette Simpson. She is a 3-time mayoral candidate. She grew up on the city's east side and ran her campaign on improving Detroit's water infrastructure in an effort to prevent flooding from heavy rainfall and ensuring lower water bills, along with reducing crime and gun violence in developing neighborhoods. Simpson is from a family of prominent leaders whose uncle is Elijah Muhammad, the former leader of the Nation of Islam. She also said she expects to hold the same priorities she held into the 2021 race, along with having more input in Detroit's school system to help boost reading levels.
Thank you. And lastly, we have Jonathan Barlow. Jonathan is a Detroit native, an entrepreneur and civic leader, a proud product of Renaissance High School and Wayne State University. Jonathan has spent the last decade driving economic development, workforce innovation, and community transformation across the city. He previously led legislation to secure community benefits and social equity programs, and has consulted for major incubators and small businesses alike. Through initiatives like Let's Talk Roundtable and OneVibe.org, he has brought together residents, business leaders, and grassroots organizers to build lasting solutions. Jonathan's campaign centers on real results, putting money in families' pockets, creating jobs, restoring homes, and says that Detroit needs a businessman that will reach every family and lead with love. So thank you again to our candidates for being here this evening. Zara is the energy, I'm the rules person. So I'm gonna lay out just kind of the rules of the road and the parameters this evening. We had excellent turnout. We're really grateful for the 6 candidates up here. We've gotten till 8 o'clock, and there's a lot to talk about. So We've got questions that are directed for all 6 of you to respond to. We ask that you keep your responses to 90 seconds. And we've got some cards up here in the front where you'll see how you're doing against time. And then we've got some questions where we'll say at the outset to whom they're directed. Wish we could have every candidate respond to every question, but if we did that, we'd probably get through 2 or 3 questions, and we wouldn't touch on all the issues that the coalition of organizations really want to hear from you all about. So if there's a question that that wasn't directed to you that you just feel you have to answer, you can by all means use your next 90 seconds to respond to it. You've also got an opportunity at the end to provide closing remarks. So that's just another chance to, get out anything that you didn't feel like you had the opportunity to address during the questions. When we get to about 30 minutes left, we're going to open it up to questions from you all in the room. And we wanted to leave that half hour so we could try to get at least 2, 3, 4. We'll see how many questions we can get out of the room. You've got a few ways in the audience that you can submit a question. One is there's a flyer with a QR code. And if Dr. Kelly Britton, thank you so much. They should be scattered throughout the room. Ask a neighbor to pass it to you. You can submit your question via QR code. There's also some note cards there in the back that you can go and handwrite your question and turn it in. Okay, turning into Luke here in the front. And then lastly, if we still have time, we'll let audience members raise their hand and we'll pass the mic and ask some questions there. This is a forum, not a debate. Zara and I are not journalists, but we will play one up here if we have to. And thank you to Stacy for serving popsicles. How many mayoral forums have you been to where there were popsicles passed around? So with that in mind, we're going to get started here.
All right, let's get started. So the first question, this goes out to all the candidates. So what does a successful homelessness response system look like, and how would permanent supportive housing be prioritized through your campaign? I guess we will start to my right.
Thank you, Zara, and thank all of you for your time and attention this evening, as well as all the candidates for joining us up here. What does it look like? I got one word: comprehensive. Well, maybe 2 words: more and comprehensive. What would permanent supportive housing be prioritized, or how would it be prioritized? I would first of all eliminate the use of the word permanent. Permanent denotes something finite and absolute, and in this business it isn't. Having served as chairman for Matrix Human Services a decade ago, we were in the homeless business, and Matrix got out of it because of cost and expense. This is not for the faint of heart. It is a costly endeavor, one that requires a full commitment of all your resources. Again, I don't do permanent because it's as much a floor as it is a ceiling. It can be restrictive. Now, that said, the prioritization would be equivalent to that. From a funding perspective, given the anticipation of the loss and reduction of funding that we're going to see in the next 12 to 24 months, I would commit to flat funding it, making sure that we at least find a way to make up for what's anticipated to be a 10% reduction. How would I do that? With annexation, which would give us about a 10% increase in revenue through revenue sharing increases, bringing Detroit back to over 1 million people.
All right, thank you so much.
Thank you for the question. For starters, the successful response to homelessness would look like we have eliminated the problem. It would look like we are not driving to work and coming down for baseball games and we see homeless people on the streets of the city of Detroit. Prioritization comes with budgeting. Any organization's major priority document is their budget. That's how we know what's important to an organization. So as mayor, I would prioritize homelessness services. And we'll start by making sure we understand that it is not a monolithic problem. We always talk about it and address it as if the things that led to homelessness are the same for everybody. Some people are homeless because of addiction issues. Some people are homeless because they've lost their jobs. Some people are homeless because of domestic violence issues and mental health issues. And we have to address those root causes that led to homelessness in the first place. And then on the other end, make sure that there is quality, affordable, appropriate housing for every one of those demographics that I touched on. And I know that there are other demographics that I did not discuss tonight. So we have to address the core issues that have led to people being unhoused and make sure that there is appropriate housing that's affordable for all. Thank you.
Thank you. So, all right. So one of the things we have to do is work to continue to expand our camps. Hello, hello, okay. Is that better? Okay. One of the first things we have to do is expand our current CAM system. At City Council right now, we've made strides to do that, but we can get a lot better when we talk about CAM systems. And what that means is better outreach to individuals, also providing and tracking individuals so we can lead to a pathway from homelessness. We do have a CAM system now that has lower wait times, but sometimes the wait times are still long. We still hear folks say that when they call the CAM system that they are told that there are not enough beds. So we still have to put beds on the other end of that. But we've got to look at homelessness in a different type of way. We often address it with intervention. We've got to get better at prevention. We've got to look at these root causes that do cause homelessness, but also act fast. So if someone has lost their job or someone is at risk of becoming homelessness, we need to act right then and there to put systems in place to ensure that they don't become homeless. And then if they do become homeless, we have to focus on providing better services on the other end with funding. We've got to address more domestic violence shelters for women. We have to address issues with our veterans to connect them to the services and to the VA. We also have to address one thing that no one talks about. There are a lot of homeless children here in the city of Detroit, and we need to put a better focus on how we reach them and ensure that they become housed.
Just want to say thank you to the moderators. Thank you to the organizations that, oh, I got the same problem. Must be the area. To the organizations that's put this on, and to you all who are engaged enough to be here tonight, I truly commend you all for your presence. I will say this so that we can just set the stage. I'm the only one who actually has a plan. This plan has been named and themed Reach Every Family. It's an 11-page plan on my website. What this plan calls for with my CEO experience is to put all the village stakeholders at the table day one. And it calls for us to eliminate at least 10% of the homeless population in DPS, which is around 6,400. So let's, in the first 100 days, get 500 of those families off the streets. How do I plan on doing it? Well, between land bank properties, between legacy Detroiters wanting to invest into properties and fast tracking them to rehab those homes so that every family has a home. I didn't say a house, I said a home. And so when you look at temporary housing versus permanent housing, we really have to look at what can this family maintain and how is it that we can make them more sustainable long-term in order to understand exactly what they need and what resources to give them. I'll tell you more about my plan later.
Hello, everyone. My name is Danette L. Simpson. I'm a lifetime resident of City of Detroit, and I have experienced homelessness a little myself. And what I would do about homelessness if I become mayor of Detroit, first of all, I will check the budget, and I will see what's going in, what's coming out, what is the sharing, what comes out of the budget for homelessness. Secondly, I would address homelessness in the communities by creating a task force that will go out and meet and greet those people that are homeless and find out where their causes are. And I will also far as children being homeless, I will also go into the Detroit Public School System, communicate with the counselors, and I will make a income-wise, issue far as homelessness to help people to be able to afford and stay in affordable housing. That's very, very important. And get them resources for employment, because without a job, you really can't pay for shelter. So that's another one problem that causes homelessness.
All right, well, thank you. And first, thank you to all of the organizations that were responsible for putting this on. I've had the privilege to work with every single one of those organizations listed. So thank you for the phenomenal work that you all do to date. So first and foremost, we're going to be very bold in our approach as it relates to what the city is currently spending through our general fund. Last budget, actually 2 budgets ago, for the first time, we allocated a permanent line item of funding to support the issue of homelessness coming from the city's budget, because I do believe that our budget reflects our values. And so I'm not waiting to become mayor. As a council member, we made sure that we added additional funding to support the issue of homelessness. Secondly, my response in general is going to be focusing on prevention, prevention, prevention. So things like right to counsel, which is providing legal counsel for families and women who are facing eviction, now have access to an attorney to not lead to homelessness, I think is important. We also have something called the Housing Trust Fund, which I would love to see additional funding go into, that funds housing, permanent supportive housing for individuals at 30% AMI or below, which is the greatest need here in the city of Detroit. We also would love to coordinate more services in general. There's so many organizations that oftentimes are working in silos. And I think under the approach of a human, homeless, and family services department, we can centralize all of the services into one centralized location to better support the wraparound services that our families and residents need who are facing homelessness.
Thank you. And every candidate stuck to exactly 90 seconds. I appreciate that. Let's keep that up all evening and we'll get through all the questions. Okay, this next question is directed to candidates Barlow, Durhal, Landon, and Simpson, and we'll go in that order. And it's about affordable housing. So over the past decade, there's been more rental housing developed in this city. However, most affordable housing is still out of reach for many Detroiters and that rely on supplemental security income or Social Security disability insurance. So what would you do to make sure that we are building housing that is truly affordable to those that are at 30% of area median income or below? And again, as Zara stated at the beginning, 30% of AMI is about $16,500. So we'll start with candidate Barlow.
Thanks for that question. This whole election cycle, housing for me has been the biggest issue. It's been priority. What I constantly tell Detroiters is that I want to make you owners, but I want people to play by our rules. I don't want to play by everybody else's rules. And so what I mean by that is there is a standard AMI that everyone acknowledges. Cool. Developers, when they come into the city, they play by our rules. So if we tell them we have our own city AMI, they follow our rules. It's a very simple, logical process. Now, why it hasn't been done as of yet, I don't understand. All I can say is for the last 15 to 20 years, ever since the 2008 foreclosure crisis, when I was the only one on the ground helping United Way match funding and financial institutions with families to keep them afloat and renegotiate their mortgages. All I can say is that I've been on the ground floor and no other leaders have said anything to date. And this is where we are. I can't sit back and keep on allowing Detroiters to keep on doing the same thing and not have leadership that will speak up for them when we're falling through the cracks.
Candidate Durhal, thank you.
Thank you. So we have to continue to work on the federal level to expand eligibility requirements for SSI and SSDI. We've got to look at how we continue to change the definitions of what public housing assistance is. We have to make sure that we are not counting food assistance as income for a lot of our folks who are having housing instability issues. But we also have to do something else. We've got to take an approach of building more low-income housing here in the city of Detroit. There's a difference between low-income housing and affordable housing. Affordable housing is everything 60% of AMI above up to 80%, and where you get to market rate. But when we talk about low income housing, a lot of the issues is that there are not enough vouchers that are accessible to our folks here in the city of Detroit and that are provided to our third party providers. And what we see is some of the other folks that have those vouchers in their hands. When we talk about housing, they send them out to Romulus, they send them out to Van Buren, they send them out to other townships, and they're not available here in the city of Detroit. We need more vouchers here in the city of Detroit as well, so we can be able to provide low-income housing. But finally, we've got to build it. And that's why I sponsored the pilot fast track ordinance here in the city of Detroit, which is now slated to create over 1,400 new affordable housing units, but has that LIHTC component in there that will help some of our smaller nonprofits have the ability to get that incentive to provide that housing.
Thank you. Candidate Landon, please.
Let me pick up where Fred left off. He's got a point. We've got to build it. I am pleased to share with you that as of 3 weeks ago, closed an agreement with a VC out of Atlanta who will commit to $100 billion worth of investment in humanitarian projects in Detroit. That said, that's not a giveaway, it's not a freebie. The thing about the AMIs, and it doesn't matter really whether it's Detroit's or the regions, there's still a deficit, a gap that has to be provided for. And that has to be factored into what we do in terms of building the housing that's needed and required. There is no quick fix. This is not going to happen. There's a report in process 1 year into a 5-year period right now that at the end of those 5 years, it's going to tell us all kinds of great things about addressing homelessness, but it's not going to tell you how to fund it. And that is the end deal on all reports in terms of their outcomes. The one critical thing that's missing is how to fund it. The one critical thing I'm bringing to the table is access to the capital to fund it. But again, it's not a quick fix. Bedrock did a thing with the NAACP where they demonstrated that it took 7 years to qualify to buy a home. Yes, we all want someone to buy a home, but this is not a quick fix. Thank you.
Thank you. Yep, Candidate Simpson.
Again, my name is Annette L. Simpson. I'm a lifetime resident of the city of Detroit, and I get SSI myself. And I know how I feel to be living below poverty level. So what I would do, I would have a relationship with people that's low income, that need affordable housing. And also I will have a relationship with landlords to see how far can they reduce their rent for those group of people. And I will make an income limit status if I can with the state and the federal agencies to be able to put a cap on rental, on what they can charge for rental housing. And I will also support stable housing as well, and the income eligibility status. So I am a strong advocate of affordable housing in Detroit. And like I say, when you living below poverty and you got to make ends meet, you know, it's not only an issue with being homeless from rental. It's homeowners out here don't even have the money to stay into their homes because they have repairs they can't afford to do, like roofs, porches and stuff. And they end up having to sell their houses and go into rental, and then they end up finding that that's not affordable for them as well. So I have lots of solutions for it. Thank you.
Thank you all for that. So this next question we're going to go into is for Jenkins, Sheffield, and Barlow. Mission-driven groups like nonprofits, churches often struggle to compete with larger housing developments and developers. As mayor, how would you support and prioritize the organizations to build deeply affordable and supportive housing based on community needs, not just unit counts. We'll start with Jenkins.
Thank you. There was a time in the city of Detroit where much of the deeply affordable housing, especially high-density affordable housing, was built in partnership with the faith-based community. Churches like Bethel A&M and Plymouth were building deeply affordable housing. We need to get back to that. Part of what I would do is utilize affordable housing bonds, because that gives the city not only the resources, but the ability to determine how the money is being spent. Cities like Chicago and San Francisco and New York have used affordable housing bonds as housing prices have risen as a way to ensure that there was an inventory of affordable housing. So I would utilize affordable housing bonds, and then I would work with nonprofits and the faith-based community, by the way, both of whom usually have lower administrative costs than larger developers. So I would partner with those agencies to create housing across the city of Detroit as a part of our strategic master plan that is built across the city, along with community organizations and residents. And it has to be affordable housing for every, not just low-income folks, but also for every stage of life. So we have to have affordable housing for seniors as well as families. Thank you.
Candidate Sheffield.
Thank you. So our campaign has launched and has been very public, what is called a community anchor plan. And essentially what that does is it designates certain legacy institutions, nonprofit organizations, and works with our churches. It's called the Faith-Based Development Initiative. We stood with over 50 to 60 churches already on this initiative. And essentially we will designate them as community anchors in our city and partner directly from the mayor's office, providing them access to capital, technical assistance, and to be a collaborative partner in ensuring the development of our neighborhoods and in our communities. I believe that it should not be about competition, but more collaborative support, not having to compete with developers, because there's work that they can do that smaller organizations and churches may not be able to do. And so under this community anchor initiative, we will be leaning towards our churches and nonprofits to develop housing within our communities. Oftentimes, what we've seen is churches utilize CDCs, and we will help them set those up through our office using a liaison to do so. I also think it's important that we actually address what affordable is in Detroit. Our office tried to sponsor a Detroit-based AMI ordinance that is not based on the tri-county method that we use now, and we will ensure that developers are actually meeting the need of the income here that we have here in the city of Detroit.
Candidate Barlow.
I'm pretty sure one of the candidates will say experience counts before the night over. And I believe and would agree with them. But then awareness is way more powerful when you understand your assets and your resources. See, when you're already working on initiatives and in the weeds and in the fight with the faith-based organizations, you know where the action is happening at. Van Dyke, where you have Zion Hope, Pastor Curtis Grant, they want to build a victory village. They want 50 tiny starter homes so that families getting off the ground can have somewhere to get to the next level. But then you have endowments, both on Casual in 94 at the Presbyterian Church. You have some at Hartford, you have some at Second Baptist, and you have others where they own prime real estate. The issue is that every time they get ready to develop, they get downtown, they can't get that last piece out the land bank, and nobody, including our elected leaders, nobody will hold their hand and walk them through the process. They could be developers, and we could have affordable housing already. They're ready at the table. But the issue is that this city continues to play backdoor politics, and only the favorites get through the program. I want to change all of that.
Okay, thank you. This next question is for the candidates Durhal, Jenkins, Landon, Sheffield, and Simpson. All right, so we'll go in that order. And it's drilling a little deeper on the money, which some folks have mentioned already. So permanent supportive housing works best when people get the services they need, but funding for those services is often missing. So two parts. One, how would you prioritize city resources? And how would you attract new funding that supports high quality services in permanent supportive housing? We'll start with you, candidate Hall.
Thank you. And I want to just take a few seconds to answer the previous question about working with nonprofits. That is why we sponsored the pilot fast track ordinance, which through many of you and your work in this room advocated for, we got across the finish line and passed. It was targeted for smaller organizations who still provide housing, but still have problems paying utilities, still have problems paying payroll for folks who are providing these services. So I thank you for your support on that. And now, again, we are now able to expand that to 30 years of affordability, 30 years of compliance if needed to continue to help folks here in the city of Detroit. How will we prioritize our funding to ensure that permanent housing is that priority? First, we have to look at the root causes again of homelessness. So if we're talking about mental health and we're talking about substance abuse, guess what we need to do here in the city of Detroit? Really open up the health department to give folks the help that they need. We've got a brick and mortar health department right now. A lot of folks don't even know where it is. But in that department, we're going to expand those services and access to those services, put more funding from our general fund into our health department to be able to provide that. When we talk about our housing and revitalization department, we are going to make sure that they are continuing to do more outreach here and use that funding as a priority to go get the folks that we need. And we talk about employment. We've got to expand our employment services, not just for folks who are housed, but folks who are unhoused. And we will work with our county partners, our state partners, and federal partners to be able to share some of the costs that is going to take to be able to move these initiatives forward.
Thank you. Candidate Jenkins.
This is where those partnerships will be deeply important because the city will need to partner with the folks who are on the ground doing the work every day, who have expertise in the issues that lead to homelessness, like Councilman Durhall mentioned, whether it's mental health issues, whether it is health issues. A lot of people have issues, long-term, permanent health issues that we have to address, whether it's utilities, what I've been doing for the past 10 and a half years. We have to partner with the folks on the ground and then help you attract more resources. Yes, we can utilize community development block grant dollars. And I'm just going to say if they are still available, because we all see what's happening today in DC. So the truth is there are a lot of questions that are out there for all of us. Everybody in this room cares about the issues that we're talking about. So we know that everything is at risk right now. So what we have to have is a leader who is willing, able, and has a track record of fighting to bring resources to the city of Detroit and to the agencies on the ground fighting to do this work. I have that track record. I have done it on the ground as a social worker, and I've done it as a local legislator, and I've done it for the last 10 and a half years as the CEO of the Heat and Warmth Fund. I would continue that work by ensuring that you all have a seat at the table as we find solutions together. The truth is, none of us have all the answers, and we need to work with you all to find the best solutions together. Thank you.
Mr. Landon.
You all are going to get sick of hearing me say this, but my approach, quite simply, as someone who looks at everything through a lens of efficiencies and economies of scale. I have re-engineered systems in education, economic development, and workforce development for over 50 years. Detroit was built and formed by annexation. We haven't done it for 100 years. It is time to once again revisit what we already know is in place and worked before. It can work again. My campaign is called Detroit 2.0, and we have 28 communities that are distressed in and around Detroit, that if we come together and realize the benefits of our efficiencies and increasing our revenue sharing collectively, share that accordingly, proportionately, it will give us what we need to work with, which is more for a lot of all of the issues that we're facing. That said, I would take and build an asset map, revisit everything. Again, I've worked with human service agencies of every stripe. In terms of housing, let's bring all stakeholders to the table. I'm worked with and reminded of a model that worked before called New Detroit Incorporated. We will revisit that, update it, and take a look at how we can make things really click, bringing in other partners like Habitat.
Council President.
Thank you. So we are going to lead by example. And as I mentioned earlier, it blew my mind that the city of Detroit had not invested directly through its own general fund into the issue of homelessness. It's only through federal grants until 2 years ago when we added a line item to permanently fund the CAM system, I think was about $900,000. And so we're going to lead by example. As I mentioned, as mayor, there will be bold investments directly coming out of the city's budget to show the entire city that this is something that we value, the issue of homelessness, whether it's prevention, permanent supportive housing, or any network of homelessness services would directly be an item within the city's budget. Secondly, we have to ensure that developers, as they come into Detroit and community benefits are negotiated, that there is a strong advocate that is saying we need an investment in right to counsel. We need an investment in permanent supportive housing, or we need an investment in our housing trust fund. And I've done that. My record has reflected that. If we look at the last, for example, 10 projects that have come before the city council that have community benefits, every project has invested in the housing trust fund because we hold them accountable and we set the culture and the tone that this is a priority. And so as mayor, I will continue to do so and ensure that as development comes, as there's opportunities for community benefits, when tax incentives are given, that we leverage this issue as an important issue that we need everyone to address with our partners as well.
Thank you. And lastly, candidate Simpson.
Again, my name is Annette L. Simpson. Years ago, I fell off my porch and I broke my wrist in 3 different places. That's why I get SSDI insurance. And I had insurance on my home, but it didn't cover deteriorated wood. And with that being a problem with people can't fix their homes, landlords can't fix their home, and homeowners, that leads to a bigger issue among people that would end up homelessness. I had on a campaign trail, I had a lady tell me, she say, look at my garage, look at my porch, look at my house. I'm gonna have to get rid of it. You know, I'm gonna have to become a homeowner, a renter instead of a homeowner. And I told her, I said, don't give up yet. I say, I want to come out with city insurance for you to get deteriorated issues fixed on your property. I want the city to come on out and inspect those properties and find deterioration on them and put a claim in for the residents themselves, okay? And it's going to be reasonable, but that will help us as far as homelessness, landlords that has violations on their properties, homeowners that been here for many, many years that can stay. So as your next mayor, I'm planning to uplift Detroit. And not only that, let's rise and shine.
All right, thank you for that. So our next question is for all the candidates. Homelessness can't be solved by one group alone. So as mayor, how would you bring together law enforcement, mental health systems, nonprofits, hospitals, and developers to align in how we support Detroiters with the most complex needs and lowest incomes? And we'll start with candidate Sheffield.
Thank you so much. So as I mentioned earlier, I think there's phenomenal groups already on the ground doing the work. And even with DPD, with our mental health co-response, there's a lot of different entities that are currently working to address the issue of homelessness, but oftentimes it is in silos. And so what I would do is bring everyone together. And we mentioned earlier, the city used to have a human services department, but I would love to reimagine that to create a homeless family and services department that would centralize all of the services and wraparound services that are needed for the most vulnerable in our city and those who are experiencing homelessness. And so we will forge coalitions, and might I say, I have an amazing track record of doing just that. We created the city's first ever homelessness task force. And because of that task force, we were able to uplift the issue of youth homelessness and receive the city's first ever $5 million grant that went to the Ruth Ellis Center for the issue of homelessness in Detroit. So we will continue to forge coalitions, bringing everyone together and ensure that people are communicating with each other to address this issue of homelessness in the city of Detroit.
Thank you, candidate Simpson.
Yes,
So basically the question once again was, as mayor, how would you bring together law enforcement, mental health system, nonprofits, hospitals, and developers to align in how we support Detroiters with the most complex needs and the lowest incomes?
well, first of all, I remember years ago when we couldn't get the EMF out to the residents. And I suggested to the former mayor then, which was Kirkpatrick, I say, well, how come we can't have outside agencies to come in and help and assist? So I will continue to put that a main issue on my platform when I step in the shoes of mayor, because mental illness is very, very serious. And I'm the only one, when I ran for Congress last year, had that on my platform. Not even the governor had mental illness on there. So that is an issue that's addressed in the neighborhoods. And I will make sure that police officers are trained and be able to handle mental illnesses, because with them shooting people just because they armed with an object or something, that's unnecessary. Okay. So we have to get to the root of this. We have to find out what's the cause of all this. We have to make sure the EMS is trained and that we can get those people the services and the mental illness needs that they need. Thank you.
Those were a number of different stakeholders that should be talking already. They should be collaborating already. They should have had multiple opportunities to create one unified agenda and one way of addressing how they all coordinate. See, we have a public health crisis because we have a coordination problem. And that coordination problem starts with leadership. If the leader doesn't coordinate properly, then everyone starts to get in their silos and they start to operate the best way that they know how. That's again why I created Let's Talk Roundtable last year. We brought together well over 300 leaders in health and wellness, faith, in government, in a genre of moms and entrepreneurs, just to be able to see the nuances. I continue to say that when you're already doing the work, you don't have to start over. So we created an initiative called Safe Nights and Safe Spaces. One, because homelessness, and when you look at public safety, you have to look at human trafficking, and you have to look at the missing people that we continue to overlook, that never return to their families, but are out here on the streets. But then I continue to say that we're overlooking those who are falling through the cracks, and the LGBTQ plus community continues to suffer because of being unwelcomed in their homes and really.
So one of the things I learned about government is that there are some things that we are really good at, and there are some things that we are really terrible at. And homelessness solutions has been one of those things because we are not the experts. And so what we have to do is develop a ecosystem of trusted folks who know how to deal with the issue. So when we talk about the partnership with our nonprofits, the main gap is funding. And how do we develop more funding and direct more funding to those that perform very well? And just because some may have a great name that they don't perform that well, maybe we don't fund them at that high level. But we've got to make sure that we are investing in the programs that work. Second, when we talk about public safety, when the police get called because there's a homeless person outside of a restaurant, how do we transport that person to the services that they need? We should be addressing it actually when that officer is deployed. So yes, we have a mental health co-response, but also sometimes there's substance abuse issues that exist. How do we connect those folks to the treatment that they need? And we will make sure that we have folks that are liaisons that take those folks right to where they need. But third, what I would say is this: when we talk about developers here, we have to set a tone here in the city of Detroit about development. Particularly if we're in these corridors where we're growing and we want Detroit to continue to grow. But you cannot be scared of homelessness here in the city of Detroit. You have to reach your arm out and be able to assist and help folks and not just run them away.
All right, candidate Jenkins.
First, we have to start with a coordinated assessment model that truly is coordinated. And if it works the way we want it to, there would be no wrong door. When people are in a crisis and they're seeking assistance, whether it's housing, mental health, healthcare, there should be no wrong door if the systems are truly coordinated. We're all on the ground doing great work, but we need to utilize technology, and we need to properly fund our system in a way where if you are a mom and you're starting with a mental health agency and you need housing assistance, the mental health agency is getting all the information you need and working directly with our housing services so that you can go straight from your counselor to getting into the appropriate housing services that you need. If you start at Henry Ford Hospital, the case manager there should be able to get you directly into the appropriate housing services or mental health services that you need. So we need a coordinated model that truly is no wrong door, no matter what point in the system you start at, you're able to continue to move forward and get the services that you need, not by filling out another application and then another application and then taking the bus to another agency. There should truly be resources and a no wrong door system. Thank you.
This campaign is really fundamentally about the math. It's about numbers. More importantly, it's about people. I want you to hold on to a couple of things. 30 years, 50% illiteracy, 40% poverty, 20% unemployment. For 30 years, nothing has moved the needle as we continue to lose on average 20,000 people a year in the city of Detroit, which brings us to where we are. That said, what is it going to take? Everyone agrees you need more housing, build, fine. I suggest to you that concurrently, while we're doing that, it is more economical, more effective to build self-sufficient people who can rise up to take advantage of whatever is being done and what is already there. The words affordable. Detroit and Flint have already been recently named as the most affordable cities in America. With that said, I don't have time to get into a whole lot of other things, but to say this: every citizen in the city of Detroit of a vulnerable community will have access to a mental health program. Secondly, I have already made strides to initial a bid on the Detroit Medical Center to get our hospital system back in the hands of Detroiters.
Okay. Thank you all. Really appreciate the candidates, and everyone stuck to 90 seconds per response, which means we're running a little ahead of schedule. So we're going to move into questions from folks in the room. Just as a reminder, you've got the flyer with the QR code and you can keep submitting questions. There are forms in the back that you can handwrite a question and turn them into Luke up here in the front. And then we'll end with just questions from the audience where you raise your hand. Yep, and we'll pass the mic around. So we've got 2 questions that were curated from the QR code, and we'll let every candidate answer these questions since we've got a little bit of time. But I do have to ask that you keep your responses to 60 seconds each, and then we'll be able to get through a few questions from the room. So this question is to everyone, and we'll go candidates Durhal, Landon, Jenkins, Simpsons, and Barlow. We'll do that order. And the question is, around the country, we have seen laws passed that target people experiencing homelessness, emphasizing punishment and criminalization instead of support and housing. Here in Detroit, we know that many of our corporate neighbors would prefer that people experiencing homelessness would just be moved elsewhere. What would you do as mayor to ensure that the rights of people are protected regardless of their housing status? Candidate Durrell.
Thank you. And so what I would say is this, there is no greater model of what we've seen when folks try to attack homelessness or homeless folks than in San Francisco and in other places in California, where they basically criminalize you for being homeless. That would not have a place in our administration. First, and we would ensure that we are working with law enforcement, just as we stated in the previous question, not that we are not criminalizing homelessness. We want to provide paths to success here and be able to utilize every resource that we have on deck to create an organized model that is connecting folks to the services. We talk about the CAM service and connecting folks, but it is still broken because the communication does not exist. And without great communication, you will have bad outcomes. And so we will sit and bring everyone to the table, all of our providers, all of our hospitals, all of our public safety services, to ensure that we are providing folks with the services that they need. But we are working in collaboration to make sure that we are getting that done. Sorry, the mic.
Go ahead, Liz.
Yeah, I have spent my life committed to civil rights and the protection of those civil rights for all people. That said, I put in 10 years on the Legal Aid and Defender Association Board of Directors to ensure legal services would be available to indigents. I was recommended by the Public Safety and Justice Committee of New Detroit, our urban coalition, to represent on that board. We did numerous things today, up and into and including, I just got appointed to the Tenants' Rights Commission for the city of Detroit, again, related to housing and status. Does that translate into homeless protections? If and when and wherever it can, it does. I will do everything I know to make the system work for those who cannot for themselves.
We will never criminalize being poor. The crime is not having enough housing that people can afford to live in. The crime is not providing the kind of services that people need to be able to live independently with dignity and the supports that they need. So rather than putting resources into trying to criminalize and punish people for being homeless, we would put resources into making sure people have the services, the resources and the supports they need so that they don't have to live on the streets. I don't even need the other 30 seconds. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, well, what was the question again? That's
The question is around laws that target people experiencing homelessness that emphasize punishment and criminalization instead of support and housing. And then there was a follow-on question or statement about an assumption that corporate neighbors would prefer that people experiencing homelessness be moved elsewhere. So what would you do to ensure that the rights of people are protected regardless of their housing status?
Okay, first of all, I think that homelessness is it comes with a downfall in life. And I don't think that a person should be criminalized for that. But if they constantly keep having contact with you and they're giving you resources and you keep going and keep getting into this situation and not trying to do nothing better, you got to do something to make the person, you know, be able to realize that homelessness is serious. And as far as the housing, would you say corporations and something about, I would keep that a little separate, but I would ask for them resources to help fund the homelessness, not hurt them. They hurt enough.
Thank you. Candidate Barlow.
While most were up in Mackinac this year for the policy conference, I happened to stay back. And walking down near Eastern Market, I saw a family in a bus stop because the temperature had dropped. See, not only is it coordination, it's overall care. I truly don't believe our leaders care about the homeless. Because we got on, we looked at the state of the city address, we saw 7 areas that they're supposed to be covering, and we still see no results. The reason why I know we still have the same problem is because I can't even put a yard sign up near Mac without one of the young brothers coming out of the Detroit Rescue Mission telling me about his story. See, what it is Ms. Jenkins is right, technology. It can help to coordinate. Millions of dollars have been spent for 211 for United Way, which is supposed to catch people.
Thank you. So the next question we have for everyone is from the audience, and she said, as a social worker, I work with people who struggle to remain housed. One of my clients has a Section 8 voucher. Recently, the landlord failed the Section 8 inspection housing quality standard inspection. She now has 30 days to move. Section 8 does not pay for the first month's rent, so she is trying to crowdsource to find $2,000 for a small 1-bedroom apartment for her and her child. What would you do to address the issues a family like hers is facing? And we'll start with Simpson.
First of all, I would like to say about the condition of the housing. I plan to start Detroit's own insurance, like I said, and she has to move out because the landlord cannot complete the repairs. Under this new insurance program on deterioration, it will help cover the expenses of repairs for the landlords. So that way the tenant will not have to be evicted. And what was the other question?
So she's asking, what would you do to address issues like hers is facing? Because she has to find, Section 8 doesn't cover the $2,000 for the first month's rent. So she now has to get that money to be able to find something else within 30 days.
Well, in that insurance fund, I will address emergency needs. And I'll make sure the money comes out of that, because when I'm talking about bringing in $75 million to the neighborhoods every year.
Candidate Barlow?
Again, my plan is reach every family. That's a clinical approach. That means that I have to take account and profile literally every family in order to see where their needs are and what it is that they need to be supported in. That then I can use that data that's owned by the city to then help the other partner organizations to complete the rest of the process. This again falls to, because I got another story just like this. I got a senior right now at Jennings Senior Home on Jefferson who her disability got hit and she's $2,000 behind and she gets evicted Friday. And so when you talk about emergency funding, all these hundreds of millions of dollars that came into the city, and we still don't have anything to help these people that are falling through the cracks. That's the systematic coordinating problem that needs to be solved through technology. And I'm the only one who understands it because the city already overspends for the technology that it has.
So the issue that we're talking about is rapid rehousing. And often the problem with it is that in that short period of time, there are folks who may experience homelessness even with rapid rehousing. So we have to work to expand rapid rehousing. And what I would do is to create a transitional fund for that situation to ensure that if you fall on that time or you fall in this particular instance, that we can put you up and get you rapidly rehoused fast temporarily until we find where your voucher will be attached to. But second, what I would say is this, that issue should never exist in the first place. And that's because we've got to get tougher on inspections here in the city of Detroit and ensuring that landlords are held accountable and compliant. So when I talk about that pilot fast track ordinance that we sponsored and passed, a big piece of that was to ensure that if we provide you an incentive and you are not being compliant, we're going to take that incentive away. And so we've got to start creating policies like that. You will not get funded here in the city of Detroit if you're not compliant. And if you are not compliant, we are aggressively going to come after you to make sure that the residents are not suffering.
I agree. Rapid rehousing has to be just that, rapid. But we can't allow families to be put out of their homes, even for transitional housing. It's better than living on the streets, but the trauma to a family when they lose their house and have to live in a shelter, it's better than the streets. But you're still traumatizing a family when they lose their home and have to live somewhere temporarily before they can go to live somewhere else. So what we have to do is ensure that there is enough quality, affordable housing in the system for all families. And one of the ways we can do that for landlords is do what the city of Philadelphia does. Their housing commission focuses on renters, but they also focus on landlords. They have a program where they actively recruit landlords to utilize their single family housing so that houses are available, high quality houses are available for people who have vouchers.
As a member of the Tenants' Rights Commission, I promise to carry the water on this. And to me, I will echo Fred's remarks. This is about strict enforcement of what's already on the books and looking at how we can improve what isn't already there to strengthen the case to protect the citizens, our most vulnerable citizens who are subject to evictions and/or situations that they find themselves in by no fault of their own, but because of negligence of their landlords and whatever. If you are going to be a landlord in Detroit, you will be a responsible one serving the needs of the people whose money you are all too willing to take.
Thank you. So this next question again for everyone, we'll go candidate Landon down to candidate Simpson. It came from the audience, and as for myself, who ran a nonprofit that worked in Detroit public schools for about 10 years, is one I'm interested in hearing from all of you about. And it's, as mayor, what would you do to better support Detroit students who are experiencing homelessness?
This is part of that network safety net thing. Again, we did a lot of that work at Matrix Human Services when I was chairman there. We need to look at all of those fundamental safety net services that we can bring to bear for these young people. Part of that is quite simply this. My education message is let's do a strong mayor model. It's the only thing we haven't done that works in a lot of major urban areas in America. We can do it here in Detroit. That said, we bring our students and incorporate them into the overall safety net that we're going to be rebuilding and re-engineering for our entire city. So let's bring our schools back in and have a strong mayor model to implement all of the services that are needed for our young people.
So one of the things that I have done over my years as a career is provided free tutoring to students in schools across the country where their schools were underperforming. And I've seen schools where the mayor controlled the schools that were underperforming. And I've seen schools where the school boards controlled it. At the end of the day, it's about leadership. So I don't think it's about the system. It's about making sure we have good leadership that is ensuring our families have the services and the resources that they need. We have to partner the schools and the city to ensure that Detroit students and Detroit families have resources. We would have people in the schools at least 2 days a week, and Dr. Vitti and I have already had this conversation, who are providing basic services. We did this at Thaw through the Pathways to Potential program, and it goes back to the no wrong door concept. If you need housing, you should be able to go to your child's school and talk to a social worker who can help you get your needs met.
So again, communication is the issue. Our city government and our school governments don't communicate. I come from a household of educators. And so oftentimes our teachers know if a student is facing some challenges, but don't have the appropriate outlet to go to be able to get them help. We've got to connect them to those services. But one of the reasons why you've seen a rise in homelessness, and a lot of folks don't talk about this amongst our students, is because they took counselors out of the schools. We have less counselors in our schools now than we have ever had, less social workers, to her point, in our schools than we have had in the past. Folks have to also feel comfortable coming to tell you that they are homeless. Some folks, it is embarrassing to them. And if they don't have someone to confide in, they won't let you know, and we can't get them the help they need. But finally, what I would say is this: we will ensure that we are putting the services that we have in the city in those schools. And whether that's pamphlets, whether that's connecting us online, whether that is coming to the schools or holding meetings with parents and the superintendent and the board, we will connect folks to the services that we have for our schools.
I also worked in the schools, Detroit public schools. I kind of took after and learned so much when my mom was negotiating contracts with the teacher strikes back in the 90s as the secretary of the board and in labor relations. I worked at Central Durfee in Spain, but I also coached basketball. I know what conversation I can have in the classroom versus in the office versus on the court. And so understanding and profiling and getting to the root and understanding who to bring to the table because they've had the longest reach to families for so long, and that's PAL. It's a lot of development and wraparound services and partnering that could have took place already. And so what I want to continue to suggest is that if nobody has been experienced or has proven to you that they brought leaders together to fix any one issue over the last 15 years, then please show them to me. But if not, let's change the way that we've been doing things and get someone who understands the problem.
Again, my name is Annette L. Simpson. What I have experienced as homelessness with children in the Detroit Public School, I was a policy representative of the Redemption Head Start. So that means I had to discuss certain family issues with families and the director. So I will enforce and will continue to have counselors in the school. That's why I say the mayor do need to have some input in the schools. So that way we can get down to the issues that's causing homelessness. So we don't know what's the cause of it. It can be runaways, it can be abuse, it could be a number of things, income-wise, etc. So as mayor of Detroit, we do need input in our schools so that way we can be able to get the services that the children need as well as the families.
Thank you guys for that. So the next question. So we have a lot of senior citizens in Detroit and they own multiple homes. So, but now they have limited incomes. What comments have been made on cracking down on landlords, but what if these landlords are senior citizens that now have limited resources? What types of support will you provide the many individuals in Detroit that are in this situation? We could start with Landon and work our way back.
Again, I think, I don't know that we're fully taking advantage of everything that's in our safety net. That said, information and communication, which has been reiterated here, is important. Asset maps are important. Revitalizing our relationships with United Way is important. Reinvigorating our willingness to coalesce and be cooperative and make things happen. I just got done serving 2 years as vice chair of the senior caucus for the Michigan Democratic Party. That said, we dealt with all things senior citizen. Relative to that, healthcare, Social Security, income, every kind of insecurity you could name, from food to health to whatever. That is all summarily tied to the fact that incomes are fixed, costs are not. They keep increasing, thereby making it more difficult to live and survive. I was also a national CSEP program trainer and coordinator. CSEP is the Service Community Senior Employment Program, federal program that I coordinated in 26 cities around the country. While nobody may want to hear it, looking at part-time work, looking at volunteer work, looking at things that can help you uplift your income. The one thing we talk about,
That's okay.
I'm sorry, I'm
So the first thing I want to say is I would bring back our senior department. Again, that one-stop shop, no wrong door. We want a place where seniors can call no matter what kind of help they need. Secondly, it's why I often talk about support for landlords. When we talk about landlords, we have a tendency to think it's some huge corporation or somebody living in some other country that's bought up all the property and they're renting it out. Over half of the single family homes in the city of Detroit and the duplexes and two-family flats are owned by one person whose grandmother passed and left it to them. One person who got a little money when they retired and they bought a house and they're renting it out. So we need to make sure we're providing the kinds of supports and small grants and home repair programs to help these landlords keep quality, affordable housing in the system. It not only helps them and their income, but it also helps all the families we've been talking about all night who need more affordable quality housing.
So I tend to think that the grants and more programs are not the issue. Our senior citizens are what they call the missing middle. Those are the folks who make too much to qualify for the programs and subsidies that we have, but still don't make enough to feel like they're getting by. So when they go apply for a home repair grant or a home repair program, they're denied access because their income is $1,000 to $2,000 above the income limit. We have to expand the eligibility requirements and access to these programs, particularly for our seniors who are landlords here that want to fix up their home. We don't want to give you a blight ticket here in the city of Detroit, but we want to give you the resources to help you fix your home. We'll expand the eligibility requirement as far as we can so we don't jeopardize losing HUD funding, but we've got to restore, again, that type of middle class. And most of these folks are our senior citizens here in the city of Detroit, and a lot of them are landlords.
For someone who took care of their grandmother and their great grandmother and has been a caregiver, it's deeper than just, can we help them pay their rent? If they're not with the right family during their season, during their latter years, or if they don't have the right support system, it's hard for them to function. And so there has to, again, be a total restructuring of how we engage the community. Now, my plan, Reach Every Family, calls for one-stop business centers inside of these community innovation hubs in every district. But inside of that, there also is a health and wellness service wraparound center. Those are going to have community organizers that can start to get out into the community, do the wellness checks, and start to relieve some of the pressure off of these families and off of the community who might have Mr. Bob in the next house and doesn't know whether or not to check on them today or tomorrow. So we have to get on one page as a village.
Again, my name is Annette L. Simpson. And like I was saying, if I create my insurance program, that would help the landlords and the senior citizens as well. As me being a landlord myself for a number of years, I have rent to all people, young, old, middle, seniors, you name it. And my first priority was I looked at their income. I charged them according to their income, not so much of what I wanted. It was a point whether they can afford to live in my home and what price can I afford them? So I didn't treat a person that gets a certain amount of money versus a person that working for it on a fixed income, a person. Like I say, it is based on the individual. And that's how come I was able to keep my houses rented for 20 and 30 years.
Okay, thank you. We have some great written questions that were submitted via QR or on the forms. We can get to those, but I do want to just pause and see if there is anyone in the audience who wants to raise their hand and ask their question. If so, Stacy from NOAA Project has a handheld mic. Where is Stacy? Oh, here we go. Yeah, thank you, everyone. And if you want to ask it of all candidates or you're directing a particular candidate or set of candidates, just let them know.
No, it's directed to all candidates. Good evening, first of all. Thank you all for this forum. I would like to know, as each individual, what would you do to help the people that are coming home from prison to either become homeowners or get into affordable housing?
I can answer that first. Back in 2005, when I first started running for city council, I, on my platform, there was prison and parole and employment programs. And when you were paroled, you just got a bus ticket. You were not put into any programs that helped you and continue you to be on the right track. So with my voice was heard. And they designed many programs for that. And I want to bring those programs back. I want to make sure they got continue to be helpful to the citizens and the parolees come out of prison, because they have a chance to get on the right track. And I tell you, it was very successful. The men that I had, I used to house men. And them men to this day, they are working. They have not been repeat offenders. So that's very, very important for the people that get out of prison to have somewhere to shelter themselves. They lose loved ones, etc.
Yeah, we'll just go down the line.
So a lot of the reason why a lot of Detroiters haven't heard is mainly because I've been traveling in my spare time to do certain initiatives around the country. Mass incarceration, the national initiative, is based out of Atlanta at Second Ebenezer with Senator Raphael Warnock. Reentry is in New York, and decriminalization has no national home. Those initiatives never make it back to Detroit because there's a very big disconnect between what we do in Washington once a year and what we bring back home after Congressional Black Caucus. So our leadership really isn't being able to make the right programming to address the problem. What I can say is this: I live next to Cherry Hill over there off of Townsend before. I understand how they come out and what's needed to support them. But what I can say is that the programming needs to be fully aligned to meet them where they are.
So as the chair of the Returning Citizens Task Force for the city, I have dedicated a lot of my work and my life to helping our returning citizens. On the state level, I introduced Ban the Box that removed the question, have you been convicted of a felony or a misdemeanor from a job application? We didn't get it passed because there were a lot of Republicans in Lansing that didn't want to get it done. But as a result, the state made that their hiring practice. Here in the city of Detroit, the hiring practice is that we already banned the box and we don't ask that question. But where's the only area that we don't? It's housing. And so we've got to continue to push on the state level to ban the box for housing. That's number one. But number two, we also have to connect folks to the services. I tell folks that we have an opportunity that when folks are released, that they come home to a job and they come home to a place to live. The stories that are often not told is that when folks are released, you have to have an address to be released to. And when you don't, and let's just say you're released even to a family member, we know there are issues that you're there 2 to 3 weeks and they haven't seen you in 15 to 20 years, you end up becoming homeless. So we have to provide that transitional support, and we'll utilize our departments in the city to be able to provide that transition.
I'm proud to say that I was a part of the city council where we passed the ordinance, drafted and passed the ordinance to ban the box in the city of Detroit, and where we required grantees of the city of Detroit to also ban the box as well. But when I talked earlier about affordable housing bonds, it's one of the reasons that it's so important because we get to decide what the rules are. And as a city, we can say, as a returning citizen, you are eligible for this down payment assistance. You are eligible for rental assistance as a returning citizen. So I would utilize those affordable housing bonds as a way to provide that service and resource for returning citizens. Thank you.
Returning citizens have played a big role in my life's work as well. Reverend Dee Dee Coleman was the sole grantee in the country to partner with the Michigan Department of Corrections on a Savory grant, serious and violent offender reentry. That said, she established a program, Wings of Faith. She brought me in to do the workforce development and job placement piece. As succinct as your question is, it is an organic process to do this, which means, first of all, just getting out. 25% of the people going in have a substance abuse problem. 50% of the people coming out have a substance abuse problem. Half of those people already have a problem coming out, getting clean in 30 days before they can even go apply for a job. There's an entire process here. Seconds are running out. I can say to you that I will apply all of my experience to seeing how we can do that job better.
Thank you all, and thank you again to the audience. Let's give it up for yourselves because you guys have been asking some great questions. So we literally have so many questions, and I've been making sure that I write these questions down because I'm going to pass them actually on to all the candidates for them to utilize social media and their closing statements and other things to make sure that they could address these statements because they're important. So I just want you all to know if your question has not been asked, doesn't mean it won't be answered, right? So I'll make sure that they get them so they can answer them. But this is one that stood out because we haven't really touched based on disabilities this campaign, and I've been to a lot of the different forums. So this statement came from the question. This question came from the audience. I have a brother who has cerebral palsy and is wheelchair bound on a fixed income. My family and I spent 6 months trying to find affordable housing with accommodations and still to this day has not been successful. How will your campaign support the disability community to ensure they have a quality of life that they deserve? And we will start with Ms. Simpson.
I have a disability myself. You know, like I said, I broke my wrist and I broke my calcaneus bone. So I know how I feel that to pick up things and to walk up steps and being able without being tired or hurt yourself. So a disability concern is one of my big issues because we do need to have accessible to housing, far as wheelchair ramps, elevators as issues, and there's been a lot of issues that's going around in the senior buildings. So me, myself, like I said, that will be a priority. I will help people with disabilities, and not only that, with malfunctional disabilities too, as well as mental.
I fully believe in disability equity, but then I continue to have a problem with when I have a young man come up to me in the grocery store and they can get the curb fixed for the grandmother who is in a wheelchair. See, there's a rapid response and an emergency response that's needed for situations and families that can not operate comfortably and normal because the city, DTE, or the water company has either tore up their sidewalk in their driveway or something like that. See, when you start talking about disability, you also have to talk about mental health. You have to talk about autism, which is becoming more and more prevalent. And so whether it is the family members that have experienced loss of hearing in my family, or whether it's someone who has cerebral palsy and needs more care than not. It's up to us to understand what each family needs so that we can support them. And my plan calls for that.
So whoever's question that was, please take my number down, 313-516-3797, 313-516-3797. We don't have to wait till we become mayor to address that issue. I chair the Disability Task Force for the city right now. And some of the strides that we have made, and we're actually working on an ordinance right now, how we require universal design and accessibility into development projects that come here in the city. And I know it can be done because I cut the ribbon about 8 to 10 months ago on a fully accessible development project. Imagine that, right on the east side. We need more of those here in the city of Detroit. And it's a shame that we may have to require folks to do that. We want to encourage them to do that, but it's a shame that we do. And I've been very focused on members of our disabled community. I helped create a home repair program, $6 million program here in the city of Detroit that now gives funding for accessibility home repair to members of our disabled community. And so that program is available. We'll get that information if you're a homeowner as well, to be able to expand and make your house more accessible. But I'm very focused on that and will continue to be as mayor.
First, I have to say kudos to Councilman Durhal for starting the Disabilities Task Force. Good job. And for expanding the home repair program, because while new construction, we can place requirements on it. But the fact of the matter is Detroit has some of the oldest housing stock in the country. So we have to ensure that we're redesigning our home repair programs to make the funding available for people to retrofit their homes if and when needed. And this is also why, again, it's so important that we're partnering with experts in the field. When I was elected to council the first time, I spent a few days with Warriors on Wheels trying to understand what the issues are. I even spent a day downtown, and this is not to compare a day in a wheelchair to a life in a wheelchair, but I spent a day in a wheelchair traveling our city on buses, on elevators, on the people mover with Warriors on Wheels, so that I could fully understand the accessibility issues that we have to address as a city. That would be my approach to problem solving as the mayor as well. Thank you.
I can relate to this issue on several levels. One, my sister had cerebral palsy and I had her on a private placement. A lot of times as families, we're forced to deal with making decisions that we might not otherwise make. That said, I think it's also clear that there are insufficient resources and funds to deal with the needs that are out there. I can say this in terms of advocacy. As a member of the NACS, and to the point, we do this with new construction, we have to go back and fix the old. But one of the things we can do with regard to design, and I credit one of my NAC members, Deirdre, who is wheelchair bound, who made sure that the District Detroit developments, 10 projects that were part of that package, all had disabled accessible housing as part of that 20% that they were going to make affordable. So I have a strong commitment to that, to the issue, and to the problem.
Thank you. We are right on time to move into closing remarks from each candidate, so you'll have a minute. I do, however, before we let each candidate make closing remarks, I just want to read some of the other questions that didn't get asked. They'll also get shared with your campaigns, but they're so good and important, and I think they deserve to be raised in the room. So one was a question about just further talking about each of your history and experience that you bring to the table, generally to deal with all the concerns that have been addressed and raised here in the room tonight. We have a question that reads, given all we know about ICE sweeping people off the streets or out of the courtroom or home without an opportunity for due process, under your administration, would the police department be told not to cooperate with ICE? Then we had a question, very specific. What's your strategy to ensure long-term funding of the right to counsel law? And then lastly, what role do you see the Detroit Land Bank playing in a strategy to address homelessness? And how would you ensure that residents of the city have priority on land bank homes over outside investors? And so raise those because they're important questions. You each have 60 seconds for closing remarks. You can address those questions or use your time however you see fit. We'll start with candidate Landon.
First of all, thank you for your time and attention. I am the writing candidate up here. It was deliberate. It was a choice. One that I felt was strategic at the time. Right now, I'm not so sure, but we will proceed. That said, I only ask two things of you. 60 seconds isn't time to cover everything. Visit landonformayor.com. Learn how to spell my name. I'm asking you to learn two words, Rogelio Landin. 12 years ago, you learned two words, Michael Duggan. Same number of letters, both cases. By all means, I know as voters, you're capable of it. I believe that if my website makes any sense, and it's gonna go through an overhaul in the next couple of weeks, but know this, that I humbly ask for your vote and your investment of time.
Thank you all for having this forum tonight, and thank you for the work you all do every single day. The people in this room are on the ground serving our most vulnerable citizens every day, so thank you. As a social worker, the only social worker in this race, I know how important what you do every day is, and you would have a mayor that not only sees you, but sees the people who you are serving every day. You'll have a mayor who's been through many of the challenges that the people that you are serving every day has been through. You'll have a mayor who will partner with you, because I know as hard as I try and as much as I've spent the last 30 years serving this city, I still don't have all the answers. And when we work together, we're stronger. So I would be seeking your expertise, your partnership to help move our city forward. And I'm asking you to go to santiljenkins.com. I don't know how many letters it is, but I know there's no H. santiljenkins.com. If you want a mayor who sees you and sees the people that you serve, then keep thinking Jenkins. Thank you.
So I want to thank everyone for being here tonight, and we will ensure that we answer your questions as well. A minute is not long enough for the Detroit Land Bank, I will tell you. But what I will say is this: we are running for mayor for a couple reasons. I want to make Detroit a place that is for families again. I am a husband. My beautiful wife's in the audience tonight. Father of two children. And what I will tell you is this: we've come a very long way, but we still have a very long way to go. And we need to make sure that growth that we have made reaches every pocket of this city, every neighborhood of this city, every commercial corridor. We're going to focus on public safety where you actually feel safe. We are going to make housing more affordable here so folks can stay in their homes. We're going to build a world-class transit system to connect our communities. We're going to lower your property taxes and charge those folks who are not paying enough to put more money back in your pocket. We are the only candidate running in this race that has served on the state level as well as the city level. And most of the changes that we are going to need have to come through Lansing. So we're asking for your support, someone who has experienced leadership for continued growth of this city. Thank you.
For the last 15 years, ever since running for city council, besides becoming an ordained minister and ministering as a youth pastor on the east side, I've been holding as many leaders as I could accountable. But I'm sorry, from my seat, I could change legislation, which I did, but I couldn't hold them accountable like I wanted to. The system started to fail us. And I'll just give you a brief example. We bust the homeless people out of here for the NFL draft every single time. But yet and still, we can't solve the problem. but we can get them out our way. That tells you what the DDA money, Downtown Development Authority, has been used for, and it hasn't been used to solve the problem. When you have someone as experienced as me in business and has been in the same rooms as all of our leaders, but has actually given you results that isn't political rhetoric, that causes for you to examine another option. God bless you, Detroit. And because you're here, I know you love Detroit.
Thank you.
Again, my name is Annette L. Simpson, and I'm a lifetime resident of the city of Detroit. What made me get into politics is that I couldn't get a job. You know, I was a wrongful convicted felon, and I opened up many doors for many people who had convictions. I didn't sit down. I stood up and I became a voice for people who had convictions. And with me having a wrongful conviction, it made me inspired to help other people who had convictions and who needed expungements because they weren't able to get jobs, housing, or credibility. So as Danetta L. Simpson being your next mayor of Detroit, I'm a lifetime resident. I'm a mother of 4, grandmother of 5. I'm an East Sider. I went to Kettering High School. I'm a landlord for number of years. And I'm also a business owner in the community for 30-some years. So we need a businesswoman, somebody that's gonna go there and take care of business. Thank you.
Thank you all. Thank you all. So I want to give it up for the candidates. I want to give it up for the audience. I want to give it up for the organizers. I want to give it up for us, the moderators. I'm thankful that you guys stayed in the heat for this. So I know it's a serious topic because it's hot and you're still here. So please make sure that you are hydrated when you do walk out, so that you don't dehydrate on us because we are not liable. But I do want to thank everybody for showing out today. I really want to thank all the candidates for that stayed and that are here, because this was a very vulnerable, a very transparent, and a very honest conversation today. And I've been to a lot of these panels, and this was the first time I feel like I was able to get into the depth of some of these responses and what you guys plan to bring to the table because it was targeted. So thank you again to the organizers for organizing this, because this is definitely one of the most impactful forums that we've had. So give it up for yourselves one more time. We're gonna bring Miss Amy on to give us some closing remarks. And please remember, check out these websites. Make sure that we are encouraging people to vote August 5th. It's very important. This is normally the election that most people don't necessarily care about or vote for. But the next mayor of Detroit has a hard task. It's not going to be peaches and cream completely. There's a lot going on within not just this political climate, but just to move us forward as a city. It's a very defining moment. So make sure that if you're thinking about somebody, vote for that person. Don't vote for a trend. Don't vote for anything else, but vote for who your heart is telling you to vote for, and get your 18-year-old cousins, nieces, nephews, and children out to vote too.
All right, so I just want to give a huge thank you to Andrew and Zara for their energy and for them doing this tonight. So just really want to thank them, want to thank our candidates for being here tonight in this heat. I heard that there are 8 forums this week, so thank you for making time for this one and being here. This is a really important topic for us in this room and really value you being here. Just want to also thank the planning committee that helped do this. There was a whole host of us, and so really want to thank folks involved with that. I'm not going to name them individually because I am going to forget someone, and then I would feel awful about that. Also, as Zara said, please vote on August 5th. It's not an election that a lot of people vote in. We're really trying to encourage people to vote. And also, there are more popsicles on the way out. So please rehydrate yourselves with that. So thank you all for being here and have a great night.